Good morning, everyone. I'd like to welcome you to the Talks program here at the Swire Properties Lounge at Art Basel here in Hong Kong. This is the final day, of course, of Art Basel, so please bear with the noise a little bit as these crowds go into the galleries for the last time for this year's edition of the Art Fair. But today, this is also the final talk for Swire Properties as well. It's got a whole program of talks this week, which have been very engaging. Our discussion this morning will be looking at the question, does wealth and the global marketing power of a brand result in a positive influence on art and culture? So I want to introduce myself. I'm Rosalind Chin, a reporter at Bloomberg Television, and these are our wonderful and distinguished panelists here today. I'm introducing Axel de Bouffevent, style director at Martel Mum Perrier Jouet, and she has worked on a range of collaborations over the years, including with designers and artists like Todd Bonte, Ross Lovegrove, Vix Minuz, and also Bernard Venet. We also have Elsa Rameau at Hermès, managing director for Hong Kong and Macau, and in her nearly 20 years of experience at the brand, she has worked with on a number of projects, and including business development for the company. And we also are joined today by CJ Hendry. She is an artist, and she's collaborating with Christian Louboutin at the moment, based in New York. Now, she's been exhibiting at the Fringe Club here in Hong Kong this week, and a collection called Complementary Colors, which sold out in just 7 minutes. Her work has been called hyper-realistic. So we are very privileged to be joined by these three panel members today for our discussion. So I just want to allow the ladies here to introduce themselves and talk a little bit about their brands and their work so far. So maybe Axel, you want to go first?
Thank you, Rosalind. Martel and Perrier Jouet have a very long heritage. Martel goes over 300 years, and that heritage is what makes us work with artists. I mean, obviously, you have 300 years of transmission, and we still work this way with artists. I mean, here you can see that not only we work with artists, but it started as being patterned for the arts. So, for example, with Versailles, and then we do limited editions. Here you have a little set of what we can do. I mean, it ranks from Bernard Venet to Jean-Charles de Castelbaljac or Jean Nouvel. It's not only about products, it's really about lifestyle, and this is what cognac is about, I guess. And we are currently building a legacy through revamping a bottling plant in cognac and turning it into a cultural foundation, which will be a destination, I hope, for all of you at some point. And I hope we'll get to talk about it a bit more later. As for Perrier Jouet, same thing. It has a very long heritage. It's over 200 years. And our relationship with art started in 1902 when one of the family members commissioned Émile Gallet, one of the most prominent Art Nouveau artists, to design what became our most iconic baron, the Belle Époque baron with the anemone flowers on it. So since then, I mean, since 1902, we haven't stopped collaborating with artists. It can go from people like Vic Muniz to Daniel Arsham, Aude de Glithero, Michel Traxler. I mean, it's like every year a limited edition or installations at Design Miami, where the official champagne at Design Miami, and each year we commission an installation to a young upcoming designer who creates a dialogue between historical Art Nouveau and contemporary Wen, and then their piece go back to our house where that dialogue takes shape. Our house in Épernay hosts the biggest French Art Nouveau collection in private hands in the world. So it's really about collaborating at all levels. It can be patronage, it can be limited editions, and it could be commissioning. Elsa, I guess it's your turn.
So I'm representing Hermès, So I accepted this talk. Usually we don't talk about what we do, but in fact we are doing a lot of arts collaboration, and people don't know about it, so it was just a good opportunity to share a little bit more. Usually it's either relative to product, either relative to scenography, like advertising campaign, we're gonna maybe talk about it, or window display as well. So there are many ways, in fact, to collaborate with artists. And what I have selected, because we only have very limited time, is to talk about the scarves. So we have a special edition called Hermès Éditeur, which has been a collaboration, so it's the 4th edition now. I'm going to share a few slides with you to show you. So the first one has been a collaboration with Joseph Albers, and it's really Pierre-Alexis Dumas, who is the artistic director for Hermès now, who really bring the scarves into arts. So in fact, we have been printing scarves since 1937. So we have 80 years of experience printing the scarves. And here is really a collaboration with this artist to represent his artworks. And you have one of his pieces at Basel as well. So yeah, just to show you the different colors. The second artist was Daniel Buren. So here it was what was very technical, so it's a living artist, and what was very difficult is to reproduce the painting, the picture in fact, on the scarf. So it's they use a very new technique, which is the ink printing. So it was very challenging for the craftsmen as well to use this painting art. And what is interesting is, so you have 365 pieces, so each piece is unique, and the frame is a different colors. So just to show you, when you change the color frame, you will see different colors appearing in the middle. So this black. Voilà. And those are all the 365 pieces, which are all unique. Then the third one collaboration was with Sugimoto, so he's a Japanese artist as well, and he worked on the getting the image of the light, natural light. So he worked on a Polaroid, and same, this technique was also ink print jets. So different colors. And the last one was with Relieu Le Parc. So Pierre-Alexis visited one of his exhibitions in Paris, and he in fact in Palais Tokyo, and he took this picture and he fell in love with this. So it's called the Longue Marche, so it's the long walk, and in fact it's representing his life through his artwork. So they decided to work together. So Relieu Le Parc went in Lyon, where we have the silky, all the printing craftsmen, and they worked together to work on this collaboration. Voilà. And a few slides for you to have a look.
Wow.
Here it is.
Yes. Do I just press it this way?
Yeah.
Hello, my name is CJ. I'm an artist. To give you a very brief synopsis, I'm a new breed of artists coming through the system. I have come exclusively through social media, which even I am a little bit baffled by. It's a very unknown platform still to this day, and I went to university to study finance, so I have not been. I did not go to art school, unfortunately. But I have, during this week, I'm collaborating with Christian Louboutin, and I, for the first time ever, have launched into colour. I've never made art in colour before in my life. For the last 5 years, I've only exclusively drawn in black and white. So I'll kind of go to the next slides, and then we might come back to this. In the past, I've, actually referenced brands but never worked with a brand before. So I'll use branded products, but I've steered clear of working with a brand because it sometimes feels too much like a paid ad. It feels a little bit sterile. It doesn't really suit me. I also have a healthy disregard for authority, so I kind of don't like doing what I'm told. So sometimes when a brand approaches me, 99% of the time I'll say no. But the opportunity to show this week with Christian Louboutin was too good to pass by. The brand, I'm not even saying this because the team is here in the audience, but they have been so extraordinarily supportive of the vision, which is very different from what I've done before. They let me have free reign completely, which is mind-blowing in itself. So I'm very grateful to be working with them this week. So these slides are kind of the things I've done in the past, so all black and white. And to go back to the colour, this is all in colour and I'm drawing paint, so it's not product at all, and it kind of works really well with the Louboutin brand, because I see Christian Louboutin as an extremely colourful, outrageous might be the wrong word, but they do take a lot of risks, and the fact that they've taken a risk on me as a very new, very contemporary artist, I think is a true testament to them as a brand. So I'm very, very grateful to be part of it this week. Yeah.
Thanks, CJ. I guess we can start our discussion today. Elsa had mentioned that MS scarves actually aren't a bestseller for the brand. So, and I guess this is a question also to Excel. Why do it then? Why are you, as a commercial product, which a luxury brand still is, why would you tie up to produce something that actually aren't bestsellers?
To talk about, so you're talking about scarves, because the one I mentioned to you are kind of unique pieces, so they are not even displayed in the stores. But in our collection of scarves, for example, we have we have 2 collections per year, and we do collaboration with illustrator, with artists as well, and we don't promote, in fact, those artists as artists. And for example, to give you, so a few years ago, Ding Yi, which is super famous, but Ding Yi, one day, Pierre Alexis, in fact, was visiting a gallery in Shanghai, and he fell in love with his work. So he met him, he invited him to come to Paris to visit our workshop as well. And I think 5 years later, Ding Yi sent him his work, and Hermès decided to print those scarves. And at this moment, it was probably too modern, too new, and it was not very commercial. So our customer didn't really like it, and it was not the bestseller. But now you can see his artworks everywhere. So it's not, in fact, the relationship between arts and Hermès is more about aesthetic and about collaboration rather than something commercial. It's really because they want to create meaningful product and beautiful product rather than just money.
Well, I definitely think it's interesting to work with artists more for philosophical reasons than for financial ones. The artist sees ahead of us, and they take us out of our comfort zone. And I think, as a brand, it's key to be shaken from time to time, and that's a way of keeping our legacy alive. You know, it's when Perrier Jouet started in 1902 with Émile Gallet. It was not an easy move. I don't want to be the one who only kept this like in a museum. I want to make sure Perrier Jouet still makes those uneasy moves, more at a philosophical level than at a business one, I guess.
CJ, do you have any comments from your angle as an artist?
There's so much to say in regard to this. Like I could chew your ear off for hours, but we only have a couple of minutes. So I'm going to talk specifically about Louboutin as a brand. I think the fact that I am such a young artist, I'm based now in New York, and the fact that they did take such a big risk, and this is a huge investment on their part to kind of showcase my art in the way that we did. It was very interactive as well, so it wasn't just the artworks on the wall, you walk around and have some champagne. It was far more interactive than that, which is something I'm really proud of. So I think for me, and I think what Louboutin and I really, gelled on, please forgive my wording, gel was the first thing that came to mind, was the fact that I do want to make my work more interactive. It is 2D and it is a drawing, but I want the viewer to come in and experience art in another way. So what we did, we got their very famous So Kate high heel, molded it, and we made 500 crayons out of the high heel. So there was a big pile of high heels, multicolored high heels in the middle of the room, and you as the viewer were encouraged to pick one up and go and draw on the walls. But that's a little bit of fun. It takes you back to when you were a kid. I don't know if you ever did this, but I did. I was drawing on the walls and really annoying my mum. So it was a really fun, childlike way to be involved in art and take you back to when you were a kid and just go crazy on the wall. So for me, that was really special.
So you've said, both Excel and Elsa, that the collaboration with artists is often for philosophical reasons other than commercial reasons. But often we do know that the customer who buys art is often the same customer that buys luxury goods. You're at that end of the scale. You're at the high end of the scale, just because of the financial terms involved in that. So often hitching yourself to an artist is a way of giving yourself some more sort of avant-garde, some cutting-edge kudos in society. Would you say it's in some ways a cop-out? You're sort of taking a shortcut to making yourself more on trend by collaborating?
In fact, for us, I think collaborating with artists, it's a very, very, very long process. So it's not at all a shortcut. It's very expensive because it's super long, and it's because because it's really a collaboration. So it can take years before something really realized.
But in that you're sort of investing in making your brand more of the moment, because you're, for example, when Louis Vuitton collaborated with Murakami, for example, it's already propelling itself because you're tying your name with that artist, and also propels the artist at the same time. Would you say this is like a sort of fast track to do it, rather than building up creative ideas of your own as a brand?
I can't speak for the others, but as far as Père Jesuette and Martel are concerned, I think it's more being ahead of the curve than being on trends, what we look for. And because of our heritage, I mean, I think when you're 300 years old and when you're 200 years old, they're not trendy brands. I mean, they've been there forever. So we have that amazing anchorage. And that root makes us, creates the credibility for us. I mean, we don't need to pretend. I think it's ahead of the curve is interesting because, as I was saying, artists are ahead of the curve and their way of thinking, and they propel our brands in the future. Okay, it may take a bit of time, and as you said, sometimes they're not commercial offers, but before it becomes commercial, and this is what I think is super interesting. They're teaching us how to think ahead of the curve, I think.
So, CJ, I mean, you've worked with Christian Louboutin now.
I have two very quick things to say on this note. I actually don't think it's a cop-out. There's two things. Art, in my mind, is the ultimate form of luxury. We can go and buy handbags, shoes, jewellery, all the rest of it, but there is art that far exceeds any handbag price point, any shoe price point. So for me, art is something that at the very highest level of luxury. I think it's actually probably hardest for the brands to choose who to work with. There are so many gifted and extraordinary artists now in 2017, probably more than there ever have, because now it's easy to access art in terms of the way you can see it, and you don't just need to go to a gallery anymore or art fairs. You can view it online, on social media. There's so many ways I can't even begin to explain. So I guess you guys have the hardest job and deciding who to work with, and then also there are so many gifted artists. Who do you say yes to? Because you're also aligning yourself with their brand. An artist is a brand. You don't want to align with the wrong artist because it could be detrimental for the brand, I think.
And that actually was my other question, was choosing the artist to work with. Because in some ways you could be picking someone out of obscurity to launch into relative fame by working with your brand. But also there is the accusation that by picking already well-known artists, you're just increasing that gap, which is already seen in the art market, where the high end is pulling away. So the high end, the well-established artists, the blue chip ones, which are already well-established, maybe leaving the lesser ones behind. So how do you choose what kind of mix in order to leave, a heritage or a legacy?
It's once again, I think the heritage gives us the key to that question. If I can take the example of Père Jesuette has that very deep root in Art Nouveau. Both the bottle designed by Émile Gallien and our collection in the house are the testimonials of that root. I'm not interested in pastiche. I'm not interested in faking Art Nouveau today. I'm looking for artists that have in their DNA the ethos of Art Nouveau. Basically, it has to be studio-made work. But I mean, today's studio-made can be highly technological. I mean, it can be digital and still a studio-made. It has to be studio-made. It has to add beauty to everyday life. it has to be inspired by nature and its processes, and it has to blur the boundaries between disciplines. These were the 4 key pillars of Art Nouveau, and it's super interesting to see that it echoes very deeply with lots of artists today. So I have a very good guide through the heritage of that house. I mean, I don't pick the artists just for the pleasure of picking them. Yes, for the pleasure of picking them.
But do you have a certain number of artists that you a year that you decide to work with? Is there sort of is it going to be 5 this year or 3 this year, or does it just depend on what you decide to stumble across?
Well, there's at least one we pick every year for Design Miami, because we do that commission. But on top of that, yes, for 3 years we commissioned at the London Design Festival, at the V&A. I mean, we're a very small team, to be honest with you, and we do as much as we can. There's a limit to what we can do, unfortunately. I would love to do more because, as you said, there's so many wonderful artists I would love to work with. The limit is what we can do. Père Yejouet is not a big brand, so it's a house. It's a boutique house, so we're doing the best we can. It's super important to create that dialogue and to have time to really dig into the work with the artist. I mean, it's not just I send you a brief and that's it. No, we spend a lot of time with them. So it's important to be able to spend that time with them.
Elsa?
Yeah, so for us, it's mostly managed in Paris, honestly, because the artistic direction is here, and it's mostly a collaboration with the pool of artists. So they have different artists they are working with, and what they are really looking for, it's a long-term collaboration. So they may work with an artist 1 year, and then 5 years ago they work with him on another project, and so on. So like we're gonna have an exhibition in Galleria coming up, which is about the high jewelry, and it's Didier Faustino who is doing the scenography. And in fact, he is an artist that Hermes worked with a few years ago in the Edge Box in 2005. So they have this kind of pool of artists. They work on different projects, and it's a really long time commitment.
But how do you? Sorry. You know that by working with somebody, you are putting them firmly in the history of your brand. So, what is it about that particular artist? What are you looking for? I think, is it that their philosophy matches with yours? Is it just the design aesthetic matches with yours, regardless of the philosophy? Which parts of it?
I cannot tell you exactly because it's really Paris deciding, but it's. I think there are a lot of match, definitely. And the relationship is so long, the collaboration to end up with something is so long that at some point they need to agree on many, many, many subjects before they end up to something.
So CJ, you chose to work with Le Boutin and not other brands. What kind of compromises have you had to make in working with them?
So can you hear me?
Yeah.
I've actually never compromised. That sounds so lame. Like I said, I have been approached many times to work with a brand. This is the first time I've ever worked with a brand. Like, it seems bizarre. I do reference product from other brands, but I don't go through their system. I don't ask for approval. I'll buy it, I'll destroy it, I'll do whatever I want to it, because the moment you go through the approval process, it can be a yes or a no, and then it's not a true idea. So half the time I said, no, catch you later. But with Louboutin, what I found so very extraordinary, I said, look, I kind of want to do colour. I don't want to draw product. I want to go in this other direction. And they said, great. How do you want to do it? They left it completely to my team and I. So that I said yes because of that. So it was very, very a lovely experience, actually. You did say something before about brands working with big artists and just kind of making it all bigger and better. I just think that's how it is, and that's how it should be. Think of the big dealers and galleries, Gagosian and Pace, White Cube, they're all enormous. They don't just sign any artist. It's not about giving everyone a go. It's about their brand. They're not just going to sign any artist because it will destroy what they're building. As with brands, fashion brands as well, they're not just going to sign, collaborate with anyone. I think it'd be detrimental if they did that. So they do need to really wean out what isn't going to fit well with them and what is, and I think that's very important. So, yeah, the
But in
big
terms-
artists will always get, fortunately or unfortunately, always get more airtime.
But in terms of the question that we're looking at today, which is, does the wealth and global marketing power of a brand result in a positive influence on art and culture? Could that be perceived as a negative because you're always promoting a similar cohort of artists?
Yes, I guess so. And that's why, for me, I'm so privileged to be working with Louboutin, because I'm not part of the system. I'm very much out of the system. I'm part of it in that I'm circling around it, but I'm really not inside it at all. So for Louboutin to work with me in such a direct, open manner is lovely, because they are really supporting a whole new wave of artists that are coming, that are starting to come through. And it's a bizarre, I am part of a very bizarre group of artists. Even I don't quite understand the direction that we're moving in, but it is what it is, and social media is a very ugly and very hungry beast, and you kind of need to go with it. So the fact that they're supporting me is a true testament to them as a brand, I think.
Well, once again, I can't speak for the others, but as far as Martel and Perrier-Jouët are concerned, we more have a patron attitude towards artists, and it's more about supporting young upcoming artists than really going for big names. And when we go for big names, there's a reason why we go for big names. It's just that they fit so well the brand that it would be just pity not to go for it. It's interesting because there's always been patrons of the art. I mean, you go back to the Renaissance, and yes, the Medici were amazing patrons, and today it has moved to something different. I think you can consider brands as patrons because the patrons as they were and the Renaissance are not there anymore. I mean, it's I think there's the face of the patron has changed, but whatever happens, you need patrons in the arts.
And it's a way to support arts, as you said. So in fact, for us, we are not communicating specifically of who is doing what, but there are so many artists involved in all the products, whether it's product, project, window. We can see the movie about Gallo if you want, but it's the Presse Locage who did the whole scenography, but we don't advertise like saying it's Presse Locage doing the scenography of Gallo advertising. So it's just offering to the public a beautiful advertising, which is a dance, which is a performance, but not without saying that Presse Locage is doing the scenography of this. So is working with artists, collaborating with them at every stage of what we are doing, just the pleasure to make things beautiful.
Well, and I guess not only you offer to the public a beautiful art, but you give him an opportunity to express his art at a different level and with a different audience.
So considering how expensive it can be for brands to develop this, then, this is a truly altruistic move for the brands?
No, I don't think so. I mean, it's, it has to benefit both sides. And this is the key to it. I mean, it's about creating a dialogue, a conversation that can grow and that can benefit both sides. I mean, if one of the sides is not happy, it won't work. You can't force things. It has to come in a natural way, to my point of view. And we do have lots of artists coming to us, knocking on the door and saying, we'd love to do something. I mean, we always open the dialogue. We never close the door. It's really, it has to be beneficial for both. And yes, it is for the brands too, because it shakes us. It takes us to another level. It creates the vision for the future. It takes us out of our comfort zone, as I was saying, and it's key for a brand. A brand wouldn't last 300 or 200 years if it hadn't been through those kinds of collaborations, I think.
So the fact that collaboration between an artist and a brand may have a positive impact on art and culture into the long term, into legacy and heritage as well, is it a byproduct then, or the fact that it's beneficial to both the brand and the artist? It's a byproduct rather than what it's being aimed for.
Can I try and answer this? I think I understood it, but maybe I didn't. So I think now artists are becoming brands in themselves. So I'm not the first, I won't be the last. It's been happening for many years. So, oh God, I could name so many. You look at an artist and you can tell who's done, they've got a style, they've got a theme, so I think we're brands as well. I'm quite a young brand. There's other artists who are far more established than I am. And they also need to look and say, do I want to work with the fashion brand or not? So it becomes a two-way street. So obviously you work for highly established, very historically rich brands. I'm 5 years into this, so you know what I mean? It's very, very different. So for established brands to be working with such young, naive individuals, who are still building their brand is a really interesting mix. But I think artists are now brands more than ever.
Well, they've been brands for a long time because when you think of Picasso and Leonardo, and they were pretty much brands, I guess.
Yep.
When the brands work with an artist, and you talk about collaboration, you talk about a dialogue, how much does the artist have to change to conform to what the brands are trying to do or the message they're trying to make?
Well, never, ever.
Ideally, of course.
No, not ideally. I mean, it has to be never, ever for one reason. If the artist is well chosen, and if we open up the dialogue well enough, there's absolutely no way there's a compromise in the end. And whatever happens, if there's a compromise, it's not a good work in the end. And it doesn't benefit well anyone. So I think choosing the artist and giving him, it's never a blank page. There's a brief to start with. And if he falls, the brief is, let's say, a kind of frame, but artists love playing with the frame and pushing the boundaries, and this is what we expect from them, to be honest. But once this is set, it's okay. And, the frame can be, it's an 18-month project, or there's a budget, or there's always a kind of frame to it. There's always a kind of constraints. But then once this is set, I think they have total freedom, and it should always be like this. Because if not, it's a compromise and it's no good.
No, I cannot.
So would you say you're confident then in that the brands that you represent, that you work for, have a positive influence into the long term in terms of culture and art?
Definitely.
Well, I'm pretty much confident about it, because if not, I wouldn't be sitting here in front of you, to be honest. This is my everyday life, It's about choosing the right person behind each of the projects. So if I wasn't confident about it, it would mean that I'm not confident about what I'm doing.
But what are the negative aspects of it in terms of you are picking an artist or several artists to promote in a way?
Okay, for me the negative aspect is that there's only 24 hours in a day, and I wish I could do more, I promise.
I think for me the negative, it can be a fine line. It can look too much like an advert, too much like the artist. There are some artists who compromise, and bravo to them. I don't know about that life. I really don't have time for it. But when artists compromise, it definitely becomes, it's actually quite obvious. You'll know it. You will have seen it. It becomes this artist who kind of stands in front of, or like does something that doesn't look like their style at all, and it's quite awkward to be a part of or look at. So I think if you don't compromise and you stand hard with what you believe in, and I think the art is saying no more than saying yes. And the bigger the brand gets as an artist, and the more you go on, the more you'll get approached. And sometimes the opportunities are outrageous, but it's about saying saying, no, that doesn't quite sit with me. Sorry.
What about accusations of commercialism? So, for example, Murakami at one stage when he was working with Louis Vuitton, there were comments like it became so commercialized, everything was basically for sale at any time, even in a museum or in different environments. Is that a negative or not?
Warhol did
Uh,
Because you're still trying to sell stuff.
It's not what we
ultimately.
do.
Well, and once again, it's super difficult to talk for the others, but I mean, we should remember that when they commissioned Murakami, he was not as famous as he is today, and he did that commission did a lot for his fame. And I don't know if this is an answer.
It depends on the artist. There's some artists who are extremely accessible. They're still very well known and doing very well. And then there's a lot who are inaccessible. It depends on the direction of the artist and and it's also, like I said before, the working with the gallery and the dealer as well, and the direction they wanting to go to as a partnership. And then whether or not they even want to work with brands. There's some enormously, outrageously huge artists who will never touch working with a brand because it's just not part of their aesthetic and what they do. Depends on the person.
I just want to ask whether any of you have any other comments to make on the discussion that we're having before I open it up for questions to the audience.
Well, for me, the most important thing is that it's about trust. And when you trust your choice of artist, and when the artist trusts the house he's going to collaborate with, then it ends up being a beautiful collaboration.
Yep.
Everyone agrees on that point then?
Yes.
Okay, I just wonder whether anyone who's been part of this discussion today would like to ask any questions to Elsa, Axel or CJ. All very quiet.
Well, actually, maybe I'm not the most appropriate person to ask because if some of you know me, that I've been very involved with brands and art, for a long time. But as we all know, today we have, the most luxury houses having the most fantastic, fondation, museums, in different parts of the world, and doing very, very elaborate exhibitions and shows and all that. And trying to be devil advocate, how do you feel that is the impact that luxury houses nowadays, as like CJ mentioned, actually art is actually the probably ultimate luxury, and it is one of the major competition between luxury houses in terms of art nowadays, rather than product innovation, designs, or it is a new phenomenon. And how do you see that as the impact of the houses, and how to see the impact to you as an artist as well? Yeah, as an open questions for discussions.
I don't quite even understand that question, but I'll answer it in a little zhuzhy little way. Do you have anything to say? I'm trying to think of how to answer it. I think I'll just say some words. Maybe that's a better idea. Brands are so powerful, more than ever. There is a lot of competition. I'm speaking on behalf of brands, not artists. There's a reason why you'll go and buy this X bag over Y bag, X shoe over Y shoe. It's because of how they've positioned themselves, and how they might be building and growing and collaborating. I'm not sure. It's about choices and how we perceive the brand as well. And then back to art, might be a reason why you might buy this artist over that artist. I'm not sure. They are so powerful. 2017, I don't know why it seems more bigger than it has been.
Well, I think that there are two sides to it. I think some brands act as institutions today, and it's probably because institutions don't do the work anymore. I mean, I don't know. And yes, things are shifting, But then there's another way of doing it, and I'm going to speak for my house now. I was mentioning earlier at the very beginning of that talk the Martel Foundation and Cognac, which we are literally opening now. It's a totally different approach. We won't have a collection. It's not about acting as an institution. It's truly about that legacy we have. First of all, the tangible one. I mean, we have that 1929 Bauhaus building in the middle of nowhere in France, and I think it's key that we keep that heritage alive. And we bring into that building a platform for artists to express themselves and meet. It's about legacy and it's about transmission. And transmission is, I mean, Cognac wouldn't be here today if it wasn't about transmission. It's only word to mouth that they learn how to make it, and it takes 30 years to learn how to make a cognac. So imagine, once you've learned, you have to teach to someone. So we're creating that platform as a hub for artists to meet and to create together. And it's a very different approach. I mean, it's not something that is going to be put in everybody's face, and we're not going to be acting as an institution. We're not going to be a museum. So I think it's once again more about being patron of the art than really using art as a lever to talk about our brand.
A couple years ago, I've been thinking about, all the major brands, they have commissioned, famous architect in the world to build beautiful store. Then looking at Renaissance, right, you have Catholic Church, and then you have the best artists, building this, amazing monument that all the tourists go to, Rome to see it. And maybe you can comment on that from the museum that, owned by, the founders or the store design funds. And what is your view on that, going forward from architecture, sculpture, and store design perspective, and how that connect into the art world?
Yeah, it is definitely connecting to art. When you ask Franck Guéret to design a museum of your foundation, I mean, it's beautiful for everybody. So, and for us, for Hermès, we are working with one agency which is collaborating with Hermès. It's Renat Dumas, RDAI, Renat Dumas, architect intérieur, and they are doing the inside of the store and the outside of the store. And we have one exception with Renzo Piano in Japan, who built the whole store. But it's true that it's a way to bring art in your store, whether it's outside or inside. And why not?
Well, it's a way of bringing culture to the public space, I think. And once again, yes, it's a way of being patron of the arts. The Martel Foundation, we chose not to work with a brand architect, I guess. There's a heritage there. We wanted architects able to understand that heritage and propel it into the 21st century, but with a lot of respect. And the architects working on the building are Brochet, Lajus, Pueyo, and they redid quite a lot of heritage buildings in France, starting with Orangerie des Tuileries, where you have the Monet Nanfeas or the Musée de l'Homme. So they're quite renowned for that, but they're not brand architects. Still, I consider that we bring culture to the public space by doing this.
As I think it was Elsa who mentioned earlier, there are, of course, an increasing number of foundations of brands getting involved in building museums, galleries, or even contributing to fixing old heritage. For example, the Trevi Fountain, the Spanish Steps, in Spain, in Italy. I guess it depends on whether you think it's a negative for brands to get involved in rescuing heritage or making art available to the public where public institutions are either unable to do so because there isn't enough money or they're reluctant to do so for other reasons. Is it necessarily a bad thing that names, whether it's a luxury brand name or a bank or any other institution, gets involved in providing this kind of art available, making it available to the public? I mean, that's a question, I guess, you can think about.
Well, I think I have a very personal view on this, but culture is the one thing that brings people together. Whoever pays for it, I don't care. We need to bring culture to the world. We need to bring culture to the others. It's the only platform where people share whatever happens. That was my statement for today, guys.
Does anyone else have any questions that they want to pose to? Yeah?
Well, there are many areas of improvement that we can make in terms of art and specifically art education. So there's often a disconnection between an art student and a career of being an artist. So I would like to ask if there's anything we can improve on in terms of the art education right now to bring up the level of the artists of the future.
Are you an artist?
I'm currently a university student.
Oh,
Yeah.
studying fine arts?
Definitely
No, definitely not. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm going to jump in here, although I'm extremely unqualified to be talking, so bear with me. Take it with a grain of salt. I did not go to art school, but I did go to university studying something completely different. I wasn't too good at that either. But I think with art school, there's always going to be a place for art school. I think you learn an extraordinary amount. History, there's so much to learn, and we'll always still be learning no matter how old we get. I do think, from what I've heard from some of my artist friends, I think something that is missing in the artist curriculum, if there are any art teachers out here, please put up your hand. The business of art. It's a very ugly part of the industry that no one likes to talk about, because as an artist you're not meant to make money, you're meant to struggle and eat canned soup and do all these things, but today it's not happening. There are artists who are running big empires, so I think the business of art is something that is not taught. Maybe there's a reason that it is not taught, actually, the more I come to think of it. Maybe it's something you have to learn and develop on your own, because then otherwise we'd build a whole cohort of commercial artists. I don't know if that's a good thing or bad thing. But for me, from my artist friends, they do say that's something that they don't understand and they really want help with, is that running a business side of art, because that's a big part of continuing to be an artist, is to be able to pay for the things that you need done.
Well, if I may, as a former art student and art teacher, because I've done both. Yes, there's a lot of improvement to be made, you're right, but life is the best school for art, I think. So learn as much as you can at university, but then learn from life, and that's it. Be open to the others and don't compromise.
Do we have any other questions? 'Cause I think that is a rather nice note to end this discussion with, talking about the marriage of business and art, and whether it leaves a lasting heritage for future generations, whether it's through collaboration, whether it's through foundations, or through rescuing public heritage, or just producing scarves or other work for the beauty of it. So I just want to say thank you to our three panelists here today, CJ,
Thank you.
Axel and Elsa,
Thank
and
you.
also to Swire and also Art Partners for helping to put together this program of talks that we've had all through this week at Art Basel. And hopefully today's discussion will give you something to think about if you are going through the art galleries today here on the last day of Art Basel. So thank you very much for joining us today for our discussion. I hope you enjoyed it.